And what is up, everybody? Happy Sunday evening. Welcome to Talking Ball. Y'all, I am Cass Hargis along with Jason Due and Lance Lacoste, and we're glad that you're able to join us tonight. We're going to recap week 3 of LHSAA action. Man, the season is flying by. It's almost October. We've got, obviously we've got 3 games in 3 weeks in the books, and before you know it, we're going to be halfway through the season. I'm not sure how I feel about that, fellas.
Every year.
Yeah. Well, look, we're saying half. If you count the championships, right? We still got what? We still got a lot of football. So let's not look too. And especially with all the access we've talked about over and over, like you can catch the majority of them. So we'll be all right. Like we still got a lot of football left. Let's not push the season away too much already.
We'll go ahead and jump right into some big picture stuff that we've kind of outlined and we talked about last Tuesday when we were previewing and looking forward to the week ahead. And we'll go ahead and just some big picture items. We talked about District 2 5A being undefeated headed into this week. They suffered their first loss, as well as the Catholic League down in New Orleans. They ran their record to 22-1. Over the last, it's been more than just the last 2 years, but these two districts have seemed to be kind of, the leader of the pack when it comes to the football in the state, and they've shown, the same thing here these first 3 weeks.
Yeah, we're already starting to kind of look at power ratings and things like that, and so it's funny. Early in the season, these Catholic League rivals almost cheering for each other because you want to see your opponents winning, and you just know it's going to pay off down the line, and so. As I'm already starting to look at power ratings, the whole Catholic League would be in the playoffs if they started today because of how high their power ratings are and because they have great records too. So good stuff.
Yeah, and what we kind of talked about before was, there's 70 unbeaten teams still remaining left right now out of, I want to say it's around 309 teams in the entire state. And some of those aren't even favorites in their own division. We talked about like teams scheduling really difficult. LCA has LCA is still unbeaten, but U High has taken a few losses and they're a really good team. Like there's some really good teams that might not be in those top power rating portion just yet. However, we know the power ratings this early. You can kind of take a glance at them and kind of get a peek, like Lance was saying, to get an indicator of where you are, but really 7 weeks from now, it'll be completely different.
Of course.
Yeah, no doubt. It's always good. It's good to look at and kind of it gives you kind of a picture, a story of where we're at now. But and the other side of it too is the teams that we always see later in the year that are playing deep into the postseason. I'm not going to say that they don't care about it, but they don't care about it. It's just whoever rolls out and whoever we're matched up with in the bracket, that's who we're going to go play, and we're going to go play. It is good to kind of see where everybody's at, but again, it's still early, still a lot of football left to be played. So let's go to last Friday night. You two were at Tag Gormley and the Catholic League Cathedral for the backyard brawl between Chalmette and Holy Cross. Full disclosure, I sat on the couch and on my patio, and I watched y'all. Y'all did a great job on VSN. It was good to hear you. Good to see y'all do your thing. Holy Cross, again, looked kind of like they looked the first 2 weeks, which is impressive. They were solid. They played really good defense. They get a big play late from Kieran Smith, running back who had a tremendous game. I think he had 3 touchdowns. So kind of from y'all's perspective, what did y'all see out there at City Park?
So the game was definitely closer than the final score. It indicated it was 23-6 final Holy Cross, but it was 10-6 in the fourth quarter with Holy Cross punting the football away. Huge special teams kind of blunder for Chalmette. They muffed the punt and roughed the kicker on the same play. And so I think where Holy Cross was much better Friday night was on special teams. They certainly won that matchup, but like you said, it took Kieran Smith just a couple carries to really put an ending on that game late after the muff punt. But overall, Holy Cross did a good job of moving the football. Their biggest concern, as Coach Watney talked about, is just finishing drives. They put together some drives, but had a hard time capping off those drives with 6 points. So that is going to be the huge step that they need to take moving into the Catholic League, which starts now.
Yeah, to the point that we talked with Coach Watney about, he mentioned finishing drives, finishing strong, closing teams out. They weren't able to do that early on in the game. To their credit, they were able to finish it off in the tail end of the stretch of the ball game. But they had the ball on the plus side of the 50 4 times in the first half, and they came out with 10 points, which, if you're an offensive guy, is a bit of a disappointing effort. However, what you have to commend is the effort that they showed on defense, flying to the football. They did an excellent job of really neutralizing the offense of Chalmette, which has been pretty explosive throughout the early point in the season. They did give up a touchdown later on in the game, and it was a 10-6 ball game at one point. But again, you have to look at the way Holy Cross responded. They came back, took care of business. It did maybe take a muffed punt in order to make that happen, but Keyron Smith with, I believe it was an 85-yard touchdown run. Was it 85 or it was?
Yeah, I think so.
It was and breaking 3 tackles in the process. We already know what type of back he is, what type of player he is, but man, the defense really showed up. We already knew the defense coming into the game was going to be impressive, but Brandon Green, right last freshman defensive back, holy cow. This kid is a ball player. I remember the first time he touched the ball was like in the second quarter or so, and it was he botched a kickoff or he didn't quite play it right and goes down the field and it was called back. And you're like, oh, look, it wasn't super well played, but from there on, he was all over the field. I was very impressed with the freshman during the game.
Yeah, I was going to add both defenses look strong, especially up front. The D-lines of Chalmette and Holy Cross are impressive. The linebackers on both sides are also impressive. And so, like when Holy Cross scored 17 to make it 17-6, it felt like that game was over because there was no way that Chalmette could score 17 points on that defense. And so big credit to both of those defenses and really both teams just offensively. They're going through a little growing pains, it feels like, where they just need to figure out how they're going to finish drives and, turn it into 6 points. So we'll see how those teams continue to grow.
Yeah, I think for both of them too, you mentioned their defense. Defensively, I think they're going to lean on their defense, both teams, to win ball games until their offense is figured out. But if you're Chalmette, you still got to feel pretty good because you have a returning quarterback. And, yes, he did not have the best game on Friday night against Chalmette, but I'm sorry, against Holy Cross. But Breeze Wilson's going to continue to play. He's been there. He's done that. He's led his team, deep into the playoffs. So he's going to only get better. And on the offensive side for Holy Cross, you have a running back like Smith. You got a chance in every game. Now, It's going to look a little different this week when they face Carr. Coach Watney talked about that. So, they're going to go through a run of when they get in district. It's going to be tough. But you got that guy on your team. You got to feel pretty good about yourself.
And to go back to that point, though, Cass, you mentioned, he didn't have the greatest game, but you have to credit defense, which is something that it could be difficult to do at times in the high school game today when you look at scores. We were texting back and forth till midnight, y'all scores, and it's 64-62 games. The Country Day game, I can't remember who they played, but I know off the top of my head, I know that went into the 50s and 60s as well. Saturday night, you had St. Aug. It was a 64 it's just the amount of points that have been scored is insane. So you have to credit really good defense where it is, and that does have an influence on the quarterback. And both quarterbacks, when you're seeing that type of pressure, it makes your job a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I was going to say Chalmette's they can have a really good receiver in Dana Antoine, but credit to Savoy Guidry, the shutdown corner of Holy Cross, really just eliminated him. And so,
Max Landry on the blitz too, bringing that pressure. I mean, that really added another dimension too.
Yeah, but that's the power of having that shutdown corner out there where you can just take a receiver out the game, and that certainly didn't help Breeze Wilson as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was a good game. I don't think the finals. You look at the final score; it was not indicative of how competitive that game was, as they seem to all be when those two get together. Jason, you touched on offense and offensive explosion. The next game we're going to talk about is one that we thought maybe we'd see one. Alexandria and Destrehan ended up being a 27-21 victory for Alexandria. The final score in the game kind of played out differently than I know, at least I anticipated. Ash kind of exclusively went to the ground game. Their quarterback, Carson Sellers, finished the game just 5 for 10 for 79 yards. 50 of those 79 yards were on one completion. He threw a 50-yard touchdown pass. But on the ground, Kason Williams for Ash had 19 carries, 116 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he also had a receiving touchdowns. Ash went on a 21-0 run to kind of extend their lead to Destrehan. Destrehan got the ball to end the game. They got down into Ash territory, wasn't able to complete a pass in the end zone as time ran out. But this is, I mean, we talked on Tuesday. This is a game that, if they were both in the same playoff bracket, we could see this game being played out in the dome, and that's really kind of what we got on Friday night.
Yeah, I watched the highlights of this one. Both teams look really, really physical on film. I think if the main takeaway for me was this Ash team over the past year going into this season, they're scoring a ton of points. But this week, they did not score a ton of points. They scored 27, I believe. And so, so apparently, for them defensively, their defense really showed up to hold Destrehan on 21 points. Destrehan has a great quarterback in Jackson Fields. He's got a couple really good weapons around him. And so, it's always good. If you're going to be a great team, you got to win in more ways than one, especially in the playoffs. And so for them to come out and make it a little bit more of a defensive game than what we usually see from Ash, I think it says a lot about their team overall.
Yeah, it's about finding different ways to win. And that's what Ash came out and did. They found a way to win. Might not have been necessarily the way that they're accustomed to over the past few weeks. They've been completely dominating teams. And it's a credit to the preparation that they put in. But really another game we talked about. I've talked a lot about the junior class in terms of quarterbacks. But, you mentioned Cason Williams, running back. The sophomore class in Louisiana of running backs, man, there's a stable of guys. There's a stable of guys who I think are really going to emerge on the scene. He's one of them. Dalen Powell is a guy out of Ruston who we've mentioned. But Malachi Dabney also really impressive performance. 198 yards on the day with a pair of touchdowns for Destrehan. So many people think of Destrehan, they talk passing attack and what they can do through the air. But Dabney is a junior, and he's a guy whose name you're going to kind of hear and get some more scholarships as the year goes on. But two really good teams. Wouldn't shock me to see them. Well, they can't play again, right? Alexandria is in the sorry, guys. We're still getting used to it ourselves. These are two teams that very well, if it was merged, you could end up seeing in the dome if they were able to play. But really impressive. Another impressive win on the road for Alexandria.
Yeah, and I think this is a huge win for Ash. Just like Lance Ritchie said, the last few years as their kind of Coach Bachman's bringing them up to this elite level, it's been score a lot of points, give up a lot of points, and win shootouts. And a lot of times those were done in Central Louisiana at home. This is different. Going on the road to Destrehan, playing in what can constitute nowadays as a defensive struggle, and winning 27-21 is a huge feather in the cap. As if they needed, and I don't think they needed any more validation this program, but they definitely got it with this win here against Destrehan. Speaking of defense, and if you listened to us on Tuesday, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much, but I think we kind of called this one with St. Charles and Dunham. We talked about St. Charles needing to control the football, and when they did, they had to capitalize and score, and eliminating big plays from Dunham. St. Charles' defense did just that. They win the game 27-21 on the back of 2 pick sixes from their defense. The story of the game, I think, can be told in one stat: time of possession. St. Charles held the ball for 31 minutes and 16 seconds. Dunham held the ball for 16 minutes and 44 seconds. Elijah Haven, also he threw for 315 yards. He also threw 3 interceptions, but when he's only on the field for 16 minutes, it's going to be tough for them to put up points.
Yeah, I think what you see when a team is playing ball control that way, I felt it as a high school quarterback. I can remember it. You go out there and you feel like you have to score. You have to do more. You have to score faster. You have to look for the big plays more because you're not going to get as many possessions. And so I'm sure that kind of played a factor into Elijah Haven's game. This is not common of him to be turning the ball over, but huge credit to St. Charles Catholic, of course. Brooks Monica, the leader of that defense. I got to watch these guys in the playoffs last year. I was very impressed with them, knowing that they were a pretty young team. And so I'm not surprised at all to see these guys coming out kind of looking for a vengeance from last year, and they're great. I know Coach Wayne Stein's going to have these guys ready every week, and they're off to a great start.
we did talk about how this team was going to come out and try to control the ball. And that's what St. Charles' MO is. And if you've been any type of familiar with St. Charles, that's what they've done since Frank Monica was there. And that's been kind of their mantra: ball control, hang on to the football, force the other team to make plays offensively and feel that pressure, complementary football. And even though their offense only scored 14 points, right, because you had two pick sixes in the game, to Cass's point, 31 minutes of ball control. That's a good enough job on offense to set your team up for success. And the Comets defense is very opportunistic. Dunham is still a very talented team. They're gonna continue. It's just when you don't see teams in high school, you don't see a ton of teams that play the style of football anymore. It's all about the big numbers, spread, chucking them up deep, trying to hit the big play. St. Charles runs power. They roll out the quarterback. They play their screen game. That's about it. They don't really do anything super impressive that's going to blow you away offensively, but they maintain control of the football, and sometimes that's enough to get the job done. And on a night when St. Charles needed to on the road, they did. And again, this is a team that, from a year removed from one of their worst seasons that they've had in quite some time, you really see the youth that was on the team last year growing up and making plays when they need to. And this is a really good football team, and they're going to continue to grow from here.
Now, these two teams in the same are they in the same division? Dunham bounces back and forth a little bit.
They're not. So we have to remember St. Charles is in
they're Division 2.
They're Division 2 select.
Okay.
So right. Dunham is Division 3 select, but really division. If you're sitting here going to debate on which one is more difficult, go look at Division 3 select and Division 2 select. Man, both brackets are going to be brutal for whoever comes out of either one.
Yeah, no, that would be a fun matchup in the postseason. But to your point, Jason, about the team being so young last year and how much they've matured, Landry LeBlanc did not put up spectacular numbers. He was 10 of 12 for 71 yards, never made a big mistake. And I think last year, that's the growth. Last year, maybe he's more prone to making that big mistake. That doesn't allow him to get into the game. But also, Skylar Edwards had 38 carries. 38 carries for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if you're going to – it's all well and good when you sit there and you say you want to try to control the football, but if your quarterback turns it over and you don't have a running back you can hand it to that can handle that load, it doesn't matter what you plan on doing. But both of those guys did a tremendous job for the Comets on Friday night. Huge win for Coach Wayne Stein in his program. This game was played at Central High. I don't know if anyone knows why. I saw that to be kind of odd. Maybe Dunham's field may have – I don't think Dunham has turf, so maybe their field may have been a little sloppy for whatever reason. But that was interesting. Also in the Baton Rouge area, Catholic and U-High played. Catholic wins 28-14. Catholic was up 28-0 at halftime. And the last 2 weeks, it's kind of been Catholic turning to their running back, Jaden Miles, and saying, hey, take us to, go win the game for us. They ran a lot of Wildcat. I know they're still playing 2 quarterbacks, Taylor Goldsmith and Baylor Graves, but they ran some Wildcat. Jaden Miles, he had 2 touchdowns. He also threw a touchdown on a jump pass near the goal line. U-High scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. I think they even had the ball in Catholic's territory late to try to make it a 1-score game, but Catholic was just too much for U-High. This was also the first victory for Catholic over U-High since 2022. They've lost 2 straight in that series until this year. And Catholic just seems to get more impressive each week.
It says a lot about U-High that they beat them the last 2 years, obviously, first off. But, I mean, as I just read through this, it almost feels like Catholic is so good right now that they are able to kind of say, we want to try a few different things and see how good what's going to be, what we're going to hang our hat on, right? I mean, we're going to play 2 quarterbacks. We use the Wildcat quarterback. It almost just feels like they're so comfortable that they're able to, just early in the season, try to figure out their own identity and win big games along the way.
And it's early in the season too, not against bad opponents.
Exactly.
It's Destrehan, STM, and U-High. And it's
And think about all the stuff they're putting on film, which so now if you're a defense coordinator preparing for them, you don't know what quarterback's going to play. You don't know how much wildcat you're going to get. I mean, it almost feels like they're just they're so good they're able to kind of play the long game and just make it that much more difficult down the road for opponents.
But to your point, they're putting all this stuff on tape and everything looks good. Like they can run everything, right? Like there's no there's no discernible drop off. They can play two guys at quarterback. They got a stable of running backs. Their defense flies the football. You've got the number one safety in the country in Bradford. Like you also have a tight end. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but again, who's got some offers. I think he's a junior to go play at Tulane. I mean, they've got playmakers on both sides of the ball. Like they're toying with these options, and they're playing really good competition. So that's what makes it even more impressive. Like they're finding their identity through these top opponents in the state, and they're still finding ways to win these games. And again, we're going to continue to see them go through. We talk about difficult districts in the state. They're not in a super easy district by any means. But again, they're going to know by playing these games early on, they're going to have a better idea of what they want their identity to be. Right? 'Cause not many teams get to pick and choose what they want to do. This team can do it. Do we want to go heavy? Do we want to go with a tight end? Do we want to go 4 wide? Do we want to run? I mean, do we want to go 3-4? Do we want to go they can pick and choose what they want to do. And it's really been an impressive effort for the Bears.
Yeah, it was extremely impressive. And it's just it's a program. Like if you point to any program in the state of Louisiana that kind of you want to model what you do after, it's them. And they're tremendously well coached. They have super athletes all over the field, and what they do it really, really well. And it's I don't want to look too far ahead and wish the season to be over, but these two, Catholic and Carr, played in the semis last year, and there was a 7-point game. These two match up again this year at some point in the playoffs, and it's going to be can't miss television. It's going to be really, really fun to watch. Up in the northwestern part of the state, Ruston, speaking of programs, takes on Longview out of Texas, 6A program out of Texas, who one of the traditional powers in Texas high school football. They come over the state line to Ruston. Ruston kicks a 21-yard field goal as time expires to beat Longview. It's the second year in a row that Ruston has beaten Longview. But Longview is now 2-2 with a loss to Ruston and a loss to South Oak Cliff, who has been in 5 straight state championships in Texas. So this victory is big time for Ruston.
I was going to say it feels like a really good time to have a podcast that talks about Louisiana high school football, because the victories that our state is reeling off is pretty cool. Like, I mean, you think about Carr last week, does more this week, but Brother Martin goes and beats somebody in Mississippi, and then to beat Longview, Texas. I mean, when I think of Texas football, I think of South Lake Carroll, Katy, Longview. Like those are like the flagship programs in my mind, and so obviously I don't know a lot about this specific Longview football team, but that's a name brand out there, and so it's really cool to see somebody from our state go on the road and beat them.
Yep.
Road. It was at Ruston, but
right. But to what Cass was saying earlier, right? When you talk about like Catholic is a staple team. When you have knowledgeable people around the country talking about high school football, I would have to believe the first two that would come to mind are Carr, and Catholic is in that conversation too. Ruston, obviously in Texas, Ruston going on their butt whooping tour of Texas like recently, man. Like they're clearly getting their name out there too. But Ruston becoming in that conversation. Ruston has been fearless in their scheduling, and they're winning these ball games, and that's really what's been so impressive. I think this is definitely a team that we're going to see late make another run. They're looking to make it 3 straight in the Dome. And I think that's very possible with the team they put together and the way that they're winning football games right now and against who they're winning them against.
Yeah, I got the opportunity 4 years ago now to coach against Ruston. And this was right before I don't believe they made it to the Dome in the year that we played, but I think the next year they did. And it's much of the same. I know Kyle Williams is no longer their DC. He's at LSU, but it's much of the same coaching staff. And the most impressive team I think maybe that I've coached against, in the sense that they were big, they were fast, they were physical, but they were always in the right spot. And it was really, really hard when, on Friday night, as making adjustments and trying to get them out of position, because they never were. And usually when you play in teams, like, you get one or the other. You get teams that are never in the right spot, but they're super talented. Or you get teams that are in the right spot, but it really doesn't matter because they're not that talented. Russin was – it was impressive. It almost looked like they had 14 guys on the field when we were trying to gain yards against them. It was super impressive. What they've done has been, it's been unbelievable. And it's fun to watch. And I'm glad I don't have to coach against them. It's more fun to sit here and watch. Down in Lafayette, we had, I think Lance nailed this one, St. Thomas More and Acadiana. And we talked heading into the game, St. Thomas More as a program, a little more stability on the coaching staff side. They were going to maybe have the edge because of that consistency. And that is exactly, at least from afar, what happened. Acadiana jumps out to a 35-14 lead. To that point in the game, there's 9 minutes left in the game. Whatever could go wrong for St. Thomas More went wrong. And with 9 minutes left, they score a touchdown on a deep ball. And then from that point on, it was just all Cougars. Cole Bergeron threw 5 touchdown passes. 3 of them were from the 9-minute mark in the fourth quarter until the 2-minute mark in the fourth quarter. He hit Christian Bro deep down the sideline, I think with like a minute and 30 seconds left, for essentially the game-winning touchdown. And I saw a quote, and I thought about you, Lance, as you called it. Shane Savoy, the offensive coordinator for St. Thomas More, said there was no panic at all on the Cougar sideline. And it was obvious. Like, they would just keep playing the next play, and, we'll figure out how to get to the end of the game when it comes. But it's kind of what happened. Acadiana's 0-3 for the first time since 2015.
There's a lot of confidence and consistency, and just knowing that you have a great program, a great culture, and St. Thomas More was able to pull this off. Acadiana is clearly playing better every week right now. And so the big problem for this Division I select division is going to be in the playoffs when Acadiana has kind of a lower seed because they're already 0-3. They're probably not going to run the table from here. So you're going to end up with a 20 seed Acadiana, and somebody's going to be really unlucky to draw Acadiana after having a good season. So that's where my mind goes right now as I kind of look at these scores and these records. And I mean, the same could kind of be said for St. Thomas More. They're 1-2. So they're probably not. They're another one that going to be a tough. It'll be a tough draw for a top 10 seed if it plays out that way.
Can't remember the year, but there was it had to be since 2010. But Acadiana had to forfeit a few games. Do you remember this? And they ended up being the 30 seed. And they, can you imagine? I was at the game. They were playing against East St. John. So you got East St. John, who was the 3 seed, taking on Acadiana. What an unfortunate situation to be in. And my feeling is, down the road, that's kind of what it ends up turning into. Man, this Acadiana team just so happened to play these really good teams early on, and now we have to suffer the consequences of other teams' actions. Right. I do think they're going to improve as the season goes on, and you're going to see them improve. They'll be in the playoffs, but to your point, though, it is going to hurt their seeding. And especially with the new rules in terms of home field advantage, that does play a role, right? Last year, Cecilia had to go on the road every single game in the playoffs. They were the road dogs, and they continued to win and pile up wins until they made the Superdome. But on the other side, St. Thomas were more behind Cole Bergeron coming back in that game. Yeah, leads are not safe in the state. I want to point this out. This is the third week in a row we're talking about a major comeback, a 35-point deficit for Mainsfield with Minden in week 1. Last week it was Barb over Lake Charles College Prep, and now in this matchup, you are not safe. Finish the job. Whoever needs to hear that, do not take your foot off the gas pedal, because apparently in this offensive-centric state of football, no team is safe. And again, this game kind of proving that once again.
Yeah, no doubt. And I can just, again, I saw some highlights, watched a little bit of the stream of this game, and it was, man, Acadiana looked like what you would think Acadiana would look like, for 2.5, 3 quarters. And then one big play from St. Thomas More flipped the complete momentum on its head, and it never stopped. it just never, Acadiana could just never stop it. I think STM forced 2 3-and-outs, which at the time of the game was the first 3-and-outs that they had forced all game long. And they did, again, it's a program that's used to winning. It's a program that's not going to back down from anyone. And once they get on that roll, it's really, really hard to stop them. Also up in the northern part of the parish, a game we talked about on Tuesday, Calvary Baptist and Franklin Parish. Franklin Parish, depending on what poll you're looking at, it's the 1 or 2, ranked 1 or 2 in 4A. Calvary Baptist, a program that's long had a tremendous amount of success. This was kind of a tale of two halves. In the first half, Calvary Baptist takes a 23-point lead on the back of 3 first-half touchdowns from Braylon Hoglin, including a 100-yard pick six. In the second half, Franklin Parish outscored Calvary 24-10, just a little bit too late for them.
So if you watch the Saints game, you know how important special teams and the kicking game is. It was miserable today. It looks like this was a huge part of this game. It looks like Franklin came from behind, did a great job there, but Franklin loses by 3 points. They failed on all 5 extra point / 2-point conversion tries. So that's 5 points, I believe, right? So
that's good.
So they could have won if they just had better conversions there, right? So Meanwhile, Calvary nailed all 3, or it's really all 5 of their kick attempts, field goals, PATs. So it came down to special teams. As we get into these big district matchups that are upcoming, those special teams play a huge part of everything. That's why I love being a special teams coordinator. I know the impact it can have on a football game.
Yeah, and Hugh Long, it was actually at the end of the first half, guys. So it was 100 as time expired, 100-yard interception return. I mean, that's a kick in the gut, and that really made the difference. You're in scoring territory and you feel like you're going to get some confidence. I will say, if nothing else, this game really solidified how good of a team that Calvary Baptist is this year. We've talked about they really have some potential. And look, man, he's a heck of a receiver out there. I believe he's 4-star. I really don't buy into the whole star system a ton. It tells part of the story, but really it's based off who's offering you, not what you're going to outcomes are going to be, right? Jordan Jefferson was a 2-star prospect. But he's been an incredible talent at wide receiver. They have a really talented quarterback as well who can distribute the ball. But really, I think this Franklin Parish team is the first time they've really been tested to the extent that they're going to need to be coming down the stretch of the season. And it doesn't sway my opinion on them. I still think this is one of the top, if not the top team in Division II non-select. I think we're going to talk about this team in a minute, but I've said it a few weeks ago. I believe when you're talking about top teams in this conversation, you have to look at North DeSoto and Franklin Parish, and at least that's where the conversation starts. So for this team of a lower classification to go beat a talented squad like Franklin Parish speaks volumes about, again, another program in the state, right, in Calvary Baptist.
Yeah, and to your point on Franklin Parish not really being tested, going into the Calvary game, they've only given up 7 points, and then Calvary puts up 33. And again, as much as this solidifies Calvary as, staking their claim as being that program, I also think you could take a little bit from it if you're Franklin Parish moving forward. Yes, they didn't play the greatest competition in the first 2 weeks. They're up there ranked 1 and 2 in 4A. You play a really good Calvary Baptist team. Again, you don't convert on a couple of PATs. That's all stuff that you could look at that say, man, if we literally just make 2 of them, maybe the game's completed. If we don't throw a pick 6 at the end of the first half, maybe it's a little bit different. So that's something for both of these programs moving forward that they can really take some positives out of. You mentioned them, Jason. We can go to it right now. But, man, that North DeSoto West Monroe game was crazy. It was a game of runs. North DeSoto wins 39-28. This is West Monroe's first loss under Coach Michael Dizer. North DeSoto stays undefeated at 3-0. Coach Dennis Dunn has this program rolling once again, but he's taken them to the Superdome. But you've got to think that this win at West Monroe's got to be one of the biggest in his 6 years as the head man at North DeSoto.
Just what I've kind of kept my eye on them. I know it's a school up in that area that is really invested in winning right now. I've seen their facilities. Obviously, you go get a coach like Coach Dunn, you're serious about taking home a trophy, and so just watching them kind of grow over the last couple of years as a program, their facilities grow and everything. This feels like that monumental, like, hey, we are here and we're serious now type victory, And I believe it wasn't even close, really, right? I mean, I know the final score was the final score, but I think they were actually up by a lot, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they jumped up early,
17-0.
Yeah. So unbelievable. I mean, but it doesn't mean West Monroe's going. I think it just more than anything, that really speaks volumes to this North DeSoto program, because we know that this West Monroe team's been off to a good start as well.
Yep.
And we mentioned last week, I believe they lost the previous year 63-14 or something along those lines. And it just goes to show, right, what difference a year can make. North DeSoto is a team that coming into this year, again, hasn't won a state title, but really felt like they've been in the right direction. Really a great job running the football, and that's what they do, right? Thomas in the backfield, man, did a really impressive day. It was 100 and how many yards, man? It was a ton, like 175 yards, something like that. He's
191.
190. There you go, 191. He's an incredible player. And, I think when you look at how far this team can go, this is that pivotal moment where they really kind of feel that faith, like, man, look what we were just able to do. And Coach Deiser said, quote, they broke our will. And for you as a team, again, you got to remember, this team came in after having lost 63 points, 63-14 the year before, to come out and break that team's will after going up 17-0, going down 28-17, and then scoring 22 unanswered. That's really an impressive outing for this team. And talk about that snowball effect and how it builds the future. This is going to be one they're talking about in Stonewall as the year goes on.
Yeah, I was going to kind of correct myself just looking back at this. Yeah, they were up 17-0, but then gave up 28 straight. I mean, they could have given up at that point, And so that's an even impressive win, knowing that that's how this game flowed. Was they came back. They both came back.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's more impressive that the game played out that way as opposed to North DeSoto going up and just running away with it. But no, I think both of these teams, again, West Monroe looks so good the first 2 weeks. I don't think they're going anywhere. They seem to kind of found what they were looking for. This was just a big night for North DeSoto. It's nothing more than that, and something that they can really springboard through the rest of the season. We'll touch on the one more game over in the Lafayette area, and then we kind of bounce around the state a little bit. But Turlings Catholic and Notre Dame, a big rivalry down there in that part of the state. These two they judge themselves off of each other. This is always a fun game. Turlings scores with 41 seconds left for a comeback win. Alex Munoz, quarterback for Turlings, hits Quinn Simon on a 26-yard touchdown. Seems like every time these two teams play, it's close. It always just seems like Notre Dame figures out a way to win. So this is a huge win for Coach Kerrville and the Rebels.
I mean, I don't know enough about these two teams, but it's always, to me, felt like a backyard brawl type game, just like we witnessed between Holy Cross and Chalmette, right? Where it's always close. Who knows what's going to happen down the stretch, but both teams always just bring their best game, and you never know. It's going to be a close game down the stretch, and so it looks like it's another fun one.
And this is a team and what is impressive is it ended up being a 24-20 final score. But Turlings is typically a team, especially with Munoz at quarterback, the athletes that they have, they're typically, a high-flying offense, can put up a lot of points, finding different ways to win. It wasn't a super comfortable night, right? 162 yards, but only 6 of 18 passing the football. That's not really, Lance, if you had that kind of night, you wouldn't be too happy with it either.
He didn't have those kind of nights.
Never. I didn't either. I played left bench, so I never had to really be worried about my stat line. It was always, I was a clean stat sheet.
There you go.
But look, this is a team that's really relies on their offense a lot, or at least when I think about them, it's offensive football. We know I got to watch some tape on Notre Dame playing Southside, a big 5A team out in Youngsville, and man, they are a physical defense. Like, that's a really physical team. For Turlings to be able to grind out a win like this, it's a nice win against a rival, and there's nothing more you love than that, right? A big win, and it just so happens to be against a rival. Yeah,
no, and especially under Coach Michael Kerrville, this is his first year, his third game. This is it's a very big win for that community, for that school against Notre Dame, because these two teams there's a lot of respect between the two, but when they get on the competition field, they don't like each other. So this was big time for the Rebels program, and as they move forward in the season. Another score, and we can kind of go from here, hit a few different things, but there were two scores that jumped out to me. Zachary goes to Karen Crow and wins 34-20. We've kind of pointed to Zachary as kind of I hate to say that they're back because I don't feel like they really they haven't gone anywhere, but back to being that semifinals final team that we're used to seeing from them. They go down or over to Karen Crow, which is a tough place to play. They win 34-20. The other one was Rummel shutting Shaw out 29-0. I think maybe we can foresee Shaw winning that game, winning it 29-0, kind of jumped out on the page to me.
Yeah, it felt like that had to be a very motivated Rummel football team. I'm sure, that was last year was the first time they lost that megaphone in a long time. And so I'm sure that was easy bulletin board material for Coach Monica, and I'm sure he had those guys ready to play. And so looked like just a very physical, typical Rummel win from start to end, ran the football really well, didn't give Shaw a chance to breathe.
Yep. My big question is, how does Shaw respond? We know they have talent. We know they have a great coach and Coach Tierney, but how do they respond from here? They played a few really tough games early on in the season, played some really good opponents. So can they maintain composure? Because, again, it's very easy to continue playing well when things are going right. I'm not saying they can't. Again, I have full faith in Coach Hank and his staff to make sure that they're in the right place, but it's tough to take a loss like this in a rivalry game on the chin. And they also have, some players out with injury. And, so it's been interesting to see how Shaw does moving forward. But Rummel kind of going through their elite lower level teams tour, if you will, having played U-High, LCA, and now Shaw, you come out 2-1, and now you're heading into the Catholic League. So, I think they're headed in the right direction, obviously. And for all of these teams in the Catholic League, the road doesn't get any easier from here. So that's going to be what's really interesting to see.
Yeah, that's what I was going to kind of say. Like Shaw, two different directions now. Shaw's best, toughest opponents are behind him. Rummel's easiest opponents are behind him. So, the future is going to be much different for these two teams now. Yep,
no doubt. And I think that's also why Coach Hank schedules the way he does, to prepare that team. And yes, obviously you don't want to start the season 1-2. Actually, in both of their losses to Carr and Rummel, they've been shut out. You're not looking to that and proud of that, but you could also look to that and say, man, we've seen as good as it can get. We're not going to see any better from here on out, even if we play all the way to the Dome. So that team is going to only get better from here. And if you're Rummel, you hope that your first 3 weeks prepares you for what's coming in the next 7, because we don't have to sit here and tell Coach Monica what lies ahead, but it's going to be tough. And, it's going to be fun, but it's going to be tough. And they've seen some things in their first 3 weeks, so that can prepare them for the rest of the season. Anything else stick out? I know we had Lutcher finally gets off the schneid with their first win at Liberty. That was a big one. Cecilia does the same, gets their first win. That's two teams that have played deep into the postseason in the last few years. But anything else that y'all seen that kind of stuck out around state?
Well, I think to your point you just mentioned, I'll just say this and I'll let Lance talk, so I can talk for days. Soccer, right? But look, Lutcher's win I think that's a much more impressive win than what people are going to give credit to. People might look and see Liberty and kind of be like, eh. But you have to understand that's a team that's on the rise right now. Their stock is drastically rising. Timmy Charles, the quarterback for Lutcher, had a really big game. And we talked last week about can Lutcher find their offensive identity. And again, he works out with former East St. John quarterback Ryan Perilou, who been coaching quarterbacks. And again, he had an impressive game. Lutcher with the stop in the red zone to end that ball game. I think that's big for them moving forward because they needed to have some type of confidence. They got Assumption next week, I believe it is. And moving forward, that's going to be a big one.
I was going to point out a couple watching Terrebonne. I was on the lookout for Terrebonne because when I talked to Riverside's coaches, they raved about how good this Terrebonne football team was. When I watched the highlights, man, they just look like a big physical football team. and they had another big win. Quincy Adams at running back, really physical looking kid on film, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns. So that's one that I felt like I was kind of on too early. That's going to have a great season. Talking about Shaw, Bell Chase looks really good. That's going to be I think that is their big district opponent there for Shaw is going to be Bell Chase. Bell Chase beat South Platte 56-0. Bell Chase, I know that team pretty well. We actually trained them in the offseason, and so they're an older team this year. They were a really small senior class a year ago, so now all their sophomores and juniors are now junior seniors. They have a really good quarterback, Ambrose. I think it's Amari Ambrose. I believe. I hope I have that name right, but really good quarterback. They can do a little bit of everything. They want to run the football with Coach Meir. That's his forte all the way back to his Higgins days, but now he has a quarterback that can run it and throw it, making him even more dangerous. And then I was going to point out, before I pass it back to you guys, Hornville beat E.D. White 28-7. So that's a big win. We've seen this E.D. White team play 2 Catholic League teams really closely. For Hornville to go blow these guys out, I mean, that's first off, it was a tough early schedule for E.D. White.
That's what I was going to say.
But that says a lot about Hornville, I think. That Hornville-Destrehan rivalry. A lot of times lately it feels like either Destrehan's really good or Hornville's really good. And it hasn't been a great game, I don't believe, recently. But now it seems like both of those teams, both are very good this year.
Yeah, and when those two, again, kind of like the West Monroe deal, when those two teams are good, it just feels like football in our state is just a little more fun to watch and a little more fun to follow. Speaking of Bell Chase, Lance, I don't know if you knew this. They have not given up a point this year. They've outscored their opponents 187-0 through the first 3 weeks. And you could say what you want about who they played. That's tough to do.
They're in the same conference as St. Charles and Shaw. So those 3 teams being in the same district, that'll be some really fun matchups.
They play, and it's only a 4-team district. So Bell Chase actually plays St. Charles and Shaw back to back in weeks 8 and 9. So it seems like there's it's almost going to be a 2-game season for those guys.
It's really good atmospheres too, boy. A little Bell Chase Stadium and the way they fill it up, pretty cool little atmosphere to go to.
I used to call Bell Chase. We talked about that. That's where I got my speeding tickets and the Bell Chase speed trap. Told my mom and dad it wasn't my fault when they were fussing at me over the paperwork. I'm not getting into it anyway. But I got twice back-to-back weeks. They were hiding, and there was no speed signs. But
we're bringing up bad memories 2 shows in a row for you.
Yeah, I'm getting PTSD talking about it. All right, but look, Parkway's offense. 63-21 on Houghton. Houghton has a really explosive offense, but guys, Parkway can put 3 different guys at quarterback. There are athletes literally everywhere on the field. Gladney at wide receiver. He made a circus catch in the back of the end zone in the first half of that game. East Ascension continues winning games. Sam Houston, a bit of an underrated school right now. They played
Turlings really well last week.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that has some athletes. They have an offensive lineman who plays kind of both ways, who's getting scholarships all over the state, all over the country right now. He's a junior. They ended up winning that game 25-20. 25-14 with a punt blocked. Jules Sumner won their game against.
I guess they beat Laranger,
which was a big game that we had talked about.
Yep.
And then some performances that stood out this week. Some really impressive efforts from some young men, right? So Live Oak beats Ponchatoula. Look, that's their first win of the season. Ponchatoula doesn't have a win on the year. What's really impressive is Caden Jones, the quarterback. He is following in the footsteps of Kingston Johnson. Johnson goes to Starkville High School now, transferred out. He throws for 420 yards and 5 touchdowns, breaks his own school record. And by the way, his receiver, Cash Davis, 226 yards, breaks a record that's been up for the last 40 years. And also gets
not 40 years, Jason. 1988. That's the year I was born. I'm not 40 years old.
Well, 37.
That's right.
Look,
easy.
Hey, there's a reason I don't do math. I do football stats. That's it. I don't do math. But I can tell you who gets a lot of yards though, right? So
that's right.
look, Elton and Montgomery, maybe a game not a lot of people are keying in on. Elton is a team that could make a run. They're 2-1 on the year, beat Montgomery 64-62. Guys, they love some offense there. Macklin Lemoyne, this kid is unbelievable. He had 374 yards in this game and 3 touchdowns. This is week 3. He has 955 yards in 3 games and 15 touchdowns. Pretty impressive effort. And on the other side, quarterback Mason Jordan, who's an all-Sentinel type guy, 85% of his passes complete, not just like 8 of 10. He went 30 for 35 and with 353 with 7 touchdowns. So pretty nice explosion over there.
Yeah, and I feel like we've seen. I mean, you always see big numbers and some outlier stats, but really the last 2 weeks we've seen a lot of big numbers put up by running backs around the state. And it hasn't been on 40 carries. They're getting big chunks of yards each time they touch the football. Speaking on the offense, I would go back to the Parkway. Parkway's put up 66 on Houghton. They have scored 43, 56, and 66 points in their first 3 weeks. They're out of District 1-5A. I think this district, and this is not a scientific fact, probably scores more than any district in the state. The one thing that I'll be interested to see with this, especially the teams in this district with Evangel, Parkway, Houghton, Airline, can they score these points during the regular season, and what does it look like in the postseason? Because for the past few years, they've all put up these video game-like numbers in the regular season. They have offenses that are fun to watch, and then they run into someone that plays a little bit of defense in weeks 1 or 2 in the playoffs, and they end up losing. So can one of these teams either play enough defense to make a deep run in the postseason, or can they just simply score enough points to make a deep run in the postseason? That's going to be something to watch here for this district. And
to toss another one in there, Huntington.
Yep.
They put up some massive video game-like offensive numbers this past week too. And they have a massive offensive line. I'm not exaggerating. All of them are over 3 bills. Every one of their offensive linemen, and most of them are like 325, 350. So they got and they like to sling the ball around, and they got athletes to do it. So it's a very deep league. I would say when you talk about 2-5A, it's a really strong league, but it's smaller. 1-5A is a massive league, and there's going to be some teams that, of course, similar last year, right, Lance? Like when we were talking about Holy Cross. Like Holy Cross didn't have the season that they wanted to and found their way out of the playoffs. It's a similar situation with 1-5A. Like they just have to play each other, and some teams are going to have to win more games than the other, and unfortunately, that bumps some of these teams out the playoff run.
I was going to point out on the topic of looking like a video game. If you watch Warren Easton's film, dude, they have. So I know Thomas Vaughn is a stud running back. He's a senior. He's the type of guy that's going to play college football. They have another kid running the football too, number 7. Don't have his name, but he looked unbelievable as well. They were throwing the ball all over the field. I mean, there is a very high-flying offense. They put up 64 points on Slidell. So I thought of when you said video game, I thought of Warren Easton. That's what it looked like with their highlights. And then Brother Martin did it again. Hudson Fields threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns on the road at New Hope, Mississippi. Obviously, we won't even need to say that Hudson's got a couple really good targets out there to throw to as well. So that's a game I'm looking forward to. I know me and Jason have Brother Martin Holy Cross week 10, so we'll see what kind of implications will be on the line there. But I know hopefully I can see him in person before that. But I know for sure I'm going to see this Brother Martin offense week 10 in person. So, I think I'm good there. Yeah,
that is definitely, especially as, getting into week 4 now, more and more district games are going to start to happen as these districts get kicked off. It's going to be fun to see how these teams did, and teams we point out in non-district. What happens now that they start to get into district, facing more teams that they're a little more familiar with, and how these district races stand out. So that's going to be fun to watch. As I know the Catholic League gets kicked off this week, as do a few other leagues around the state. So anything else, Jason? Go.
I was just gonna say, it's been a great 3 weeks of football. We talked about the first week. Clearly, it was almost like a bowl week atmosphere, right? Like there were so many just absolute bangers for ball games, and we're sitting here watching. I'm watching 12 games in a weekend, and like just trying to see all the games that I can. And so, Lance, we need to see, right. So when I used to go cover LSU games, they used to have the TVs up there, and you used to be able to watch every game. We got to get some put in normally, right? So that when we're calling the game, we can be watching a few, or maybe bring some iPads or something. Because man, it's just it's addicting. It's because there's so much access, and there's so much really good football going on in the state. It's been a blast to cover, and most viewers we've had while live streaming in one night. So again, thanks to everybody for watching. We appreciate the support, the positive feedback that we heard, and critical feedback for that matter too. Any love improvement. So thanks for everybody for watching and sharing.
Yeah, no, this has been a ton of fun, and man, we're just getting started. But yeah, it is the amount of information and that's readily available in high school football in our state, around the state, and the quality of work that's being done by those guys. Friday nights I know you guys have a great time calling the games. Friday nights, sitting back and not attending a game and doing it all from the living room, and having 4 or 5 games going at a time. That's just as fun. But this is, I can't wait for the rest of the season to see how it plays out. Can't wait to see y'all again on Tuesday night. We'll be back Tuesday night where we preview and look ahead to now week 4, and we've got some big district matchups I know that we're going to want to talk about around the state, and hopefully nail down a coach interview to bring to y'all on Tuesday night. So again, thank y'all so much for watching, for joining, for staying with us. We hope you enjoyed it, had as much fun as we did. If you like our stuff, go to our social on X, follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also watch us on VSN on demand or live, however you prefer. And with that, we'll see y'all again on Tuesday night to preview week 4 of the Louisiana high school football season. Thank you.